Okay, let's look at part 2. So in the module XML, I'm going to open the part 2 address space. We see we've got another root space, and it has the identifier blah 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 part 2, and its name is going to appear as part 2 endpoints. And what we see here is a reproduction of the first example. So we've got the same active1 endpoint declared. And notice that we've got still the same physical class that will be instantiated here. And in fact, every declaration will instantiate a different instance of this physical endpoint. So there's, in this module at the moment, there's a physical instance of accessor1 here, and then there's another physical instance of accessor1 just declared here. We see it's logically got the identifier active column 1 just as before. We've changed its ID just so that we can see that it's actually a different instance, so it's part 2 accessor 1. And then we've got a second accessor also in this space, and surprise surprise, this one's got a class of resources accessor 2 and an identifier of accessor 2, active 2, and a slightly different ID as well. So we've got two physical endpoints in this space, each with a different resource identifier, active 1 and active 2. Just to show you what accessor 2 does, it does exactly the same as accessor 1, just returns a name or a resource representation, active colon 2. Okay, so we can go and look at this space. We can look at the source, and obviously this shows us one view of the address space. And let's go and use the tools and use the Space Explorer to look at the space as it presents itself into the system. So here's the demo resolution address module, and we see that part 2 has 2 endpoints. And if I look at the structure diagram for this, then as we saw, it's called 2 endpoints. It's got accessor 1 and accessor 2 in it. If I look at the details of the space, I see that I have 2 physical endpoints. The dark bands in this diagram show the physical endpoint, and then this identifier here is the logical resolvable set of resources that endpoint is responsible for. So here we see it's got a part 2 1a, and if I look at the logical endpoint details, it tells me that it's got a grammar, and the identifier it supports is active colon 1, and it supports the source verb. And if I want to use it, as we'll see in a little while, then I can import it. I can import this space into another space, but we'll learn about that in a moment. Okay, let's use the trace tool again, and we're going to try and probe this address space to understand the resolution. So I want space 2 with 2 endpoints. If I ask for active colon 1 and I resolve that, then we see that accessor 1 was resolved, and we see exactly as before, it started in the part 2 address space this time and matched on accessor 1. So the resolution was exactly as we saw in the previous example. If I resolve active 2, the resolution occurs, it resolves to accessor 2, and now this is a little more interesting. Remember from earlier I said that resolution is delegated, and that when a requester tries to resolve a request initially, it gets handed to a space, and the space goes and asks each of the physical endpoints in that space if it will resolve them. And it does it in the order that those endpoints are declared in the space. So what we see here is that the resolution process started in the space with 2 endpoints, and first of all it asked accessor 1, do you want to resolve this request? And accessor 1 said, no, it doesn't match my grammar, it's not for me. Then the space said, okay, I'll try accessor 2, and accessor 2 was given the request, and accessor 2 said, actually yes, that does match my grammar and it matches my verb, so yes, I'm the place that request should come to for execution. So if we now issue that request for execution, we'll see that accessor 2 fires up and we get active 2 back as a response. Again, if I try and sync, or let's do an exists on active2, because I haven't implemented that verb, if I try and resolve, we see nothing resolves. And what happened now was the resolution started in the space. It tried accessor1, but the grammar didn't match. It tried accessor2, the grammar did match, but the verb didn't match. And so accessor2 said, no, I don't want that request. And eventually no match was found.